It's one of the oldest questions. If God is all-powerful and all-good, where did evil come from? Why is there so much pain and conflict in the world? The biblical narrative points to a beginning. Not a beginning on Earth with humans, but a beginning before that in a place we can't see. It points to a rebellion, a mutiny in the heart of creation led by a being of incredible power and beauty. His name was Lucifer. His story is the story of how something perfect could choose to break. To understand this, we have to start with a disclaimer. The Bible doesn't give us a single chapter titled The Story of Lucifer's Rebellion. There isn't a neat, clean biography we can flip to. Instead, the story is pieced together from different parts of Scripture. It's found in passages of prophecy, in visions, and in the words of Jesus himself. It's a story told in shadows and echoes, but when you put the pieces together, a clear picture emerges. It's a picture of pride, the ultimate world-breaking pride. Let's start with who he was. And before the fall, he wasn't the monster we often imagine. He was something magnificent. The prophet Ezekiel, in a passage that is directed at a human king but uses language that seems to go far beyond any mortal, gives us a glimpse. He describes a being who was the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. This wasn't some minor angel, this was a masterpiece of God's creation. Ezekiel says, "You were in Eden, the garden of God, every precious stone was your covering." He lists off jewels like sardius, topaz, diamond, and gold. This being was adorned with splendor. He was created in a state of perfection. Ezekiel goes on to call him the anointed cherub who covers. A cherub, in this context, isn't a chubby baby with wings. Cherubim were powerful, high-ranking angelic beings who guarded the very presence of God. This one was anointed, set apart for a special purpose. He was a guardian of the throne of God itself. He walked in the midst of the stones of fire, a poetic way of describing the glorious and holy environment of God's presence. He was at the top. He was close to the source of all power and all light. The name Lucifer itself, which comes from a Latin translation of a Hebrew word in Isaiah, means light-bearer or morning star. He was brilliant. He was beautiful, he was powerful, and he was perfect in all his ways from the day he was created. Until, as Ezekiel says, iniquity was found in you. So, what was this iniquity? What was the sin that could corrupt a being so perfect, living in a perfect environment? The Bible points to one thing above all others: pride. The prophet Isaiah gives us the other key piece of the puzzle. Like Ezekiel, he's speaking a prophecy against a human king, the king of Babylon. But the language he uses is so cosmic, so absolute. It has been understood by theologians for centuries to be describing the spiritual power behind that king, the original rebel himself. Isaiah records the inner thoughts of this being. It's a monologue of self-obsession. The 5 "I will" statements that lay bare the heart of the rebellion. I will ascend into heaven. This is the first crack. He was already in heaven, in the highest courts. But this isn't about location. It's about status. It's a desire to rise above his created station. He wasn't content being the most magnificent created being. He wanted more. He wanted to cross a line that was never meant to be crossed. It was a rejection of his place, a rejection of the order established by God. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. The stars of God are often interpreted as the other angel. He wasn't just trying to get a promotion, he wanted to rule over his peers. He saw the entire angelic host not as brothers in service to God, but as subjects for his own kingdom. His ambition was to establish his own throne, his own center of power, in direct competition with God's. He wanted to be the new authority. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation on the farthest sides of the north. In ancient Near Eastern mythology, the farthest sides of the north was the symbolic dwelling place of the gods. This is a claim to divinity. He is saying, I will occupy the seat of ultimate power. I will be where the divine council meets. I will take my place among the gods. Of course, in the biblical view, there is only one God. So this is a direct, blasphemous attempt to usurp the unique position of the Creator. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. Clouds in the Old Testament are often a symbol of God's glory and presence, the Shekinah glory. To ascend above them is to claim superiority over the very manifestation of God. It's a statement of breathtaking arrogance. He is basically saying, I am greater than the glory of God. My own glory is supreme. And finally, the ultimate desire, the root of all the others, I will be like the Most High. There it is, the heart of the matter. It wasn't enough to be the most beautiful angel. It wasn't enough to be the wisest. It wasn't enough to be a guardian of God's throne. He wanted to be God. He looked at the Creator, the source of his own existence, his beauty, his wisdom, and his power, and instead of feeling gratitude, he felt envy. He saw God's position not as something to be worshipped, but as something to be taken. Ezekiel connects this inner pride with Lucifer's outward beauty. He says, "Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty, you corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor." He became so infatuated with his own reflection, so to speak, that it poisoned him. His wisdom, which was given to him by God, became a tool for his own self-glorification. His beauty, a gift, became a reason for rebellion. He began to believe he was the source of his own greatness. He forgot he was the light bearer and started to believe he was the light itself. This is the essence of pride. It's the great spiritual lie that we are self-sufficient, that we are the center of the universe, that we owe nothing to anyone, not even our own creator. This wasn't just a quiet, internal rebellion. It became a campaign. He wasn't content to fall alone. The book of Revelation gives us a vivid, symbolic picture of this event. John sees a vision of a great, fiery red dragon. This dragon is identified later in the chapter as that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. The vision describes this dragon's tail sweeping a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. Again, stars are symbolic of angels. This passage suggests that Lucifer's rebellion was persuasive. He managed to convince a full third of the angelic host to join him. He likely used his charisma, his wisdom, and his high position to sow seeds of doubt and discontent. Perhaps he argued that God was a tyrant, that they were being held back, that true freedom lay in self-rule. He presented his rebellion as a liberation movement. He was the first great deceiver, and his first victims were his own kind. What followed was not a debate. It was a war. Revelation describes it plainly, and war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon and his angels fought. This was a cosmic civil war. Michael, the archangel, whose name means "who is like God," led the loyalist forces. It's a fitting name. The very question in his name is the answer to Lucifer's arrogant claim. While Lucifer was saying, "I will be like God," Michael's entire identity was a declaration that no one is like God. The rebellion, though massive, was ultimately doomed. The power of a created being, even the most powerful one, is nothing compared to the power of the Creator. Revelation says the dragon and his angels did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out. Jesus himself refers to this moment in a fleeting but powerful statement. When his disciples return, excited that they can cast out demons in his name, Jesus tells them, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven." It's a picture of a sudden, catastrophic, and irreversible defeat. A brilliant light bearer plummeting into darkness. The fall was as swift as it was total. He was expelled from the presence of God. His place as the anointed cherub was gone forever. His name was changed. He was no longer Lucifer, the light bearer. He became Satan, a Hebrew word that means the adversary, the accuser. His entire identity was now defined by his opposition to God. So, the why is pride. But why does that pride emerge? The Bible doesn't spell out the metaphysical mechanics of it, but it hinges on one crucial concept: free will. For love and worship to be genuine, they must be chosen. God did not create a universe of robots programmed to adore him. He created beings, both angelic and human, with the capacity to choose. Lucifer was given this freedom. He was given immense gifts, a high position, and a will of his own. And with that will, he made a choice. He chose himself over his creator. He chose to love his own glory more than the glory of God. This is a chilling thought. It means that evil wasn't created by God. God created the potential for evil when he created the freedom to choose. Evil itself was born in the heart of a free creature who chose to pervert the good he was given. Pride is taking a good thing, like beauty or wisdom, and twisting it into a reason for self-worship. Satan didn't invent some new dark substance. He took the light he was given and tried to claim it as his own, and in doing so, he plunged himself into darkness. After being cast out of heaven, his war against God didn't end. It just changed battlefield. He could no longer attack God directly, so he turned his attention to the pinnacle of God's physical creation, humanity. If God loved these new creatures made in his image, then Satan would do everything in his power to corrupt them, to mar that image, and to separate them from their creator. This is where the story of Lucifer connects directly to us. The serpent in the Garden of Eden is understood to be Satan. And what is his temptation? It's the same lie he told himself. He comes to Eve and questions God's goodness and his word. Did God really say? He plants a seed of doubt. Then he makes a promise: you will not surely die. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God. There it is again. The same temptation. You will be like God. he offers them the very thing that caused his own downfall. He invites them to join his rebellion, to reject their place as creatures, and to seize a fraudulent divinity for themselves. He tempts them with pride, and humanity, given the same free will that Lucifer had, made the same tragic choice. They chose to believe the lie of the adversary over the word of their creator. From that point on, the Bible portrays Satan as the god of this world, a temporary usurper who prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. His goal remains the same: to deceive, to accuse, and to destroy. He accuses believers before God. He tempts people into sin. He blinds the minds of unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel. His rebellion continues through his influence on the fallen world system. He is the ultimate source of the lies that fuel hatred, greed, and destruction. He is the father of lies, as Jesus called him. The story of Satan's rebellion, then, is not just some ancient myth about angels. It's the Bible's explanation for the origin of evil. It answers the question of how a good world went so wrong. It wasn't God's fault. It was the result of a choice made first by the highest of all angels and then echoed by the first humans. It's also a profound cautionary tale. The sin of Satan is the root of every human sin. Every time we choose our own will over God's will, we are echoing Lucifer's I will. Every time we put ourselves at the center of our own universe, we are playing God. Pride is subtle. It can disguise itself as self-respect, ambition, or independence. But at its core, it is the refusal to submit to our rightful creator. It's the belief that we know better, that we can chart our own course, that we are the masters of our own fate. The story of Lucifer shows where that path ultimately leads not to glory and freedom, but to a fall like lightning. It leads to darkness, to alienation from God, and to ruin. The narrative also sets the stage for the entire drama of redemption. The rest of the Bible is the story of God's plan to defeat this rebellion, and to reclaim what was lost. The conflict that began in heaven and moved to the Garden of Eden culminates at the cross. When Jesus came, he entered enemy territory. Satan tempted him directly in the wilderness, offering him the kingdoms of the world if he would just bow down and worship him. It was a replay of the original conflict. Would the Son of God remain loyal, or would he, like Lucifer and Adam, grasp for power on his own terms? Jesus, of course, rebuked Satan with the word of God, demonstrating a perfect humility and submission that was the exact opposite of Lucifer's pride. The cross was the decisive battle. It looked like Satan's greatest victory. He had successfully incited humanity to kill the Son of God, but it was actually his ultimate defeat. Through his death and resurrection, Jesus broke the power of sin and death that Satan had brought into the world. He disarmed the principalities and powers, as the Apostle Paul wrote, making a public spectacle of them. The war isn't over yet, but the outcome is certain. The book of Revelation, which shows us the beginning of the rebellion, also shows us its end. It describes a final judgment where the devil, who deceived them, is cast into the lake of fire and brimstone. His long rebellion will be brought to a final permanent end. There will be a new heaven and a new earth, where righteousness dwells and the effects of his prideful choice will be erased forever. So, why did Satan rebel against God? He rebelled because he was free, and he used his freedom to choose himself. He became so captivated by the gifts he was given that he developed contempt for the giver. He preferred the idea of being his own God to the reality of serving the one true God. His story is a tragedy of cosmic proportions. The fall of the brightest star, the corruption of perfection, the choice that unleashed darkness and chaos into God's good creation. It's a somber reminder that the most dangerous enemy is not outside of us, but inside the whisper of pride that says, "I will be like the Most High." And it makes the humility of God, who came not to be served but to serve, shine all the brighter in contrast.